Sarvada sarvabhavena nischintair bhagavan eva bhajaniyaha. So God alone should be worshipped always with all one's heart and without any worry. So God alone should be worshipped. Eva. This is important. So for a devotee, God alone is worthy of worship. We know there are many types of worship. No, worship of fame, worship of power, dollar worship. None of them are for devotees. For devotee, a true bhakta, God alone is of highest priority. God alone should be worshipped. So here the word bhajaniyaha has come from the root bhaj, which we have translated loosely as worshipped. But bhaj does not mean worship alone, because the word worship, whenever we hear, we think of it is a formal worship, ritualistic worship. Not in that way. Bhaj can mean many things, like to adore, to love, to pursue. All these things are conveyed by the word bhajaniyaha. So God alone should be pursued, God alone should be loved, God alone should be adored by a devotee. When sarvada, always. And we know that this is the one of the characteristic feature of a spiritual text of Indian spiritual text, that they will always speak in absolute terms. Sarvada, sarva kaleno. Then in Advaita, in Vedanta scriptures, very often we find amrite, ashutte. As long as you are alive, as long as you are awake, until you fall asleep, you should do this manana vichara. So as we have said several times, as I have said, that for our sake, this kind of terms means regularly. Okay. Whenever we hear such terms, sarvakaleshu, sarvada, we should translate it for our practical purpose regularly. Okay. So because they would always say the highest thing, the ideal thing, and what it really means for us is regularly. God alone should be worshipped, pursued, loved always, that is, as much as possible and regularly. And sarva bhavena. This sarva bhavena can mean two things. One is with all one's heart, that is, with entire heart, that not half-heartedly, with full heart, entire heart. Heart needs to be, as they call, poured out for Bhagavan. That means sarva bhavena. When we are thinking of God, worshipping God, remembering God, so it should be wholehearted. Okay, that is sarva bhavena. Another meaning of sarva bhavena is in all possible ways, because the word bhava has got several connotations. It can mean, in this current context, in all possible ways, that is, through all actions and all undertaking. So not only say through meditation, but also through formal worship, maybe singing, maybe chanting, maybe reading, maybe simply remembering. Through all the faculties of the mind, all possible ways, one should think of God. One should think of God. One should try to love God. That is the another meaning of sarva bhavena. And nischintehi. Chintaha means worries. Nischintehi means without any worry. Without any worry, one should love God always in all possible ways. So, is it possible to live without any worry? Is it possible to live without worries? What do you think? How should we take this aphorism? Without worry, think of God. So, what should we do with our worries? Yes, you can unmute and share your thought on this.
Give it to God and just, leave it to God's help.
Yeah, He will take care of everything. That thought should be there in the mind.
Okay, all right. Any other thought?
Just have a time. If you're worried about something and your mind keeps cycling, don't do it for a half hour. Give yourself maybe 8 minutes, and then you got to stop it and put that away somewhere. And I went to therapy, and we wrote with our non-writing hand a box, and you put the things that are worrying you in the box. It's a mind exercise.
Very good. Yes, that's a good perspective. Exactly. Any other?
Maharaj, I think. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I feel that to be without worries is so difficult, but auxiliary practices help in this, like ritualistic practices like chanting, reading, holy person's company, and doing all these things help a lot and give strength to the mind to handle the worries.
Right, very good. Give sense of doership to God. Yeah, that is how you become Nishchinte. Fine. So the point is how we should take it. We should leave everything in the hands of God. It's a very idealistic thing. Although it is to be practiced, but at our present level, it does not become possible. So of course, that is the correct interpretation. That is no doubt about. Even Narada even has told in previous aphorisms that in all the thoughts, worries, all should be surrendered to God. That's it. But how we should interpret it? I would take Alexander perspectives. Okay. So worries and thoughts, this will always remain. But at the time of, at least when we are doing, say, meditation, okay, meditation, or doing, say, a scriptural reading, at that time, at least, let us tell ourselves that let the worries be at the doorstep. Let the worries be at the doorstep. Let them not trouble ourselves. So whether it's meditation, whether I am doing japa, whether I am chanting, at that time, for example, next half an hour, let the worries be there. Okay. Some or other worries will always remain in our life, but let the worries not keep us from remembering God. So one thing is, there is a great verse. I forgot where I read it. That happens to us, that we think that we will think of God when we shall be free from the worries. Okay, when we have no trouble anymore, nothing to, no worries to paying attention to, then with such a free mind, tension-free mind, then we shall think of God. Because now, how can I think of? How can I meditate? Because there are so many other things. That kind of thoughts play in our mind. So one verse is Ya richati harim smartum vyaparantar gate abhi samudre shanto kallole snatu michhati durmati. That is, those who think that I will think of God when all the problems have been solved. Their condition is just like the person who thinks I shall take a dip in the ocean when all the waves have subsided. So waves never will subside. Waves will always remain. So also problems, existential problems, problems of the world, there will always remain and they will be always there chasing us. Okay. So there will never a time come when we will be totally free of worries. So probably we can think of this aphorism in this way, that amidst all the worries, we have to make time for God, thinking of God.
Swamiji,
Okay. Yes.
in Bhagavatam,
Yes. Yes.
uh, Kunti, when she is after the war is over and Sri Krishna is going back to Dwarka and he comes to Kunti to say bye. And that time Kunti's prayers to Sri Krishna, and in that she says that Lord, let there be always worries in my life, so I will always remember you. And when we are in trouble, you are here with us.
Right. No,
so
that there is a difference between this. I don't know. There is a difference between. Kunti said, "Let there be sorrows."
Yes.
Okay. At the time of sorrows, which we cannot control, we try to think of God. Those who believe in God. But there are worries, small worries, little worries, which are not sorrows as such. Okay. For example, I have sat for a meditation, then I will be thinking about that I did not do, that needs to be done. Okay. How about Ukraine war? How about things of the world going on? These are not sorrows, okay, as such, but they are worries, little bit of worries. And those moments, what we do is, for example, meditation is a very good example. All the worries, small worries, all they show up at the time of meditation. So all the worries of the world, for example, tomorrow what I will do, and that work should have been done like that, all the planning, all the regret clouds our mind at the time of meditation. So the thing is, we cannot do anything about just thinking about them at the time of meditation. Okay. So we have to tell our mind again and again that those problems will remain always there, and we have to deal with them at different time, not now when I am exclusively thinking about God. I think that is another way of looking at this aphorism, that amidst all the responsibilities and worries, God should not be forgotten or worshipped. So that is one meaning of being free from worries. Another meaning of nishchinte is without any restraint, that is passionately. For example, we in Indian languages we say that someone is sleeping, nishchintehi, that is totally, totally, or somebody is doing something, nishchintehi, that is with their full intention, not thinking of anything else. In that sense also, this could mean think about God in totality, in fully, passionately, without restraining. Restraining means, for example, what others might think. Sometimes this might kind of thoughts play in our mind. If I am doing like this, what others might think. So forget about all those things, drop all those things, think fully about God. So summary then of this aphorism is, even in the midst of worries, one should regularly worship God with all their hearts in all possible ways. There will be worries, there will be responsibilities, but in the midst of all, one should regularly make time for God. And that should be, when we are doing that, that should be with all our hearts. And that should not be only through one method. There are several methods: meditation, chanting, singing, mantra japa, whatever way, in all possible ways one should do. So what happens when God is worshipped thus? That takes us to the next aphorism, one of the most important aphorisms of Narada Bhakti Sutra. A great assurance Narada gives us. Okay, that is aphorism 80. Sa kirtyamanah shighram eva avir bhavati anubhavayati bhaktan. Let's recite it together. Sa kirtyamanah shighram eva avirbhavati anubhavayati bhaktan. Kirtamanaha, being thus worshipped, sa, God, shigrameva, quickly, avir bhavati, manifests, bhaktan, to the devotees, and anubhavayati, gives them direct experience. Being thus worshipped, God quickly manifests to the devotees and gives them direct experience. Yes, this is one of the most important aphorisms, I think, of the text, and it's a great assurance for us. So it's kirtamanaha, being thus worshipped. Thus means as told in the previous aphorism. Sarvada sarva bhavena, always with all one's heart in all possible ways. If one can do that, then shighram, quickly, quickly God manifests. How quickly depends upon the earnestness and intensity of yearning. Sri Ramakrishna says in Gospel of Sri Ram, Gospel, what he says one day, I am reading it out. How wonderful Narendra's state of mind is. You see, this very Narendra means Swami Vivekananda, this very Narendra did not believe in the forms of God. And now you see how his soul is panting for God. You know that story of the man who asked his guru how God could be realized. The guru said to him, "Come with me. I shall show you how one can realize God." Saying this, he took the disciple to a lake and held his head under the water. After a short time, he released the disciple and asked him, "How did you feel?" "I was dying for a breath of air," said the disciple. Now Sri Ramakrishna says, when the soul longs and yearns for God like that, then you will know that you do not have long to wait for God's vision. The rosy color on the eastern horizon shows that sun will soon rise. So once we have that kind of yearning that God, we need God earnestly, sincerely, Sri Ramakrishna compares that kind of yearning with the rosy color of the horizon. That when there is rosy color in the horizon, we know God, sun will soon rise. So once we have that yearning, God will quickly manifest before us. In the same idea has been also given in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, aphorism 21, first chapter. Tibra sambeganam asanna. That the state of yoga, final state of yoga, samadhi, is quick for those who are tibra sambega, that is, those who are very much committed and practicing it with all their sincerity. For them, the sampragyata samadhi to asampragyata samadhi, all these types of samadhi are asanya, very quick. Okay. So it all depends upon the sincerity and the earnestness of the practice. The next aphorism of Patanjali Yoga Sutra again says that even if one is committed, Tibra Sambega, one is committed, among them also there are varieties. Mridu, Madhya, Adhimatra. That is weak, mediocre, and strong. That is, one is how committed you are, another is how regular and how deep your practice is. So Patanjali Yoga, then they say that there are 9 types of yogis actually. You know, 3, Mridu, Madhya, and Tibra, depending upon your commitment. Okay, how committed you are to path, whether mildly committed, moderately committed, or very much committed to your path. Then among all these categories also, there could be again 3 subcategories. One is committed, second is how sincerely we're doing the practice. One can be very much committed to a path, but may not be very regular. Okay, maybe not doing enough what they can do, whatever in that. So again, in that also, each category there is Mridu, Madhya, and Adhimatra. Okay. So those who are very committed and doing sincerely with all their capacity, for them, asanna, it is very quick. God manifests them. So avirbhavati means manifests. Manifest, what kind of manifestation? Manifestation means God, which is still an idea for the devotee, for all of us, becomes real. God is no more an idea. It is a reality. That is called manifestation. With no doubt about existence of God. That is called manifestation of God, reality. Sri Ramakrishna says this. One day there were not, no, it is Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda's conversation, third meeting. Narendra asked Sri Ramakrishna, have you seen God? Then Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, I have seen God. I see him as I see you here, only much more clearly. God can be seen and one can talk to him. And hearing his answer, Swami Vivekananda noted, he said that for the first time, I found a man who dared to say that he had seen God, that religion was a reality to be felt, to be sensed in an infinitely more intense way than we can sense the world. As I heard these things from his lips, I could not but believe that he was saying them not like an ordinary preacher, but from the depths of his own realization. So that is very important. Sri Ramakrishna's Sri Ramakrishna cleared our doubts about the existence of God. And as it were, Swami Vivekananda asked this question from our behalf, on our behalf, and he got very satisfactory answer and convincing answer that God is real. God really manifests. That is what Narada is saying here. God is real. God manifests. I heard from another Swami who overheard conversation of two very senior Swamis. I'm not taking their names. So these two Swamis, they are talking among themselves. They did not know that this other Swami was also nearby. So before telling, I have to give some context. Some of you have seen or probably know that in some of our centers in India, we have marble image of Sri Ramakrishna. Marble image, life-size image. And although all are made by the same artist, Pal, a great artist, G. Pal in Calcutta, he made many of those. And also his family, sons, grandsons, they are continuing still making. So there are many temples have images. So often they speak about, or we speak about, which image is the most beautiful image. So these two Swamis were talking. So some of the famous images which are known for their exactness and beauty. One is Belur Math, image of Sri Ramakrishna. Another is in Rajkot, Gujarat. Another is Varanasi. Okay. So these two Swamis were speaking among themselves that, so they call each other brother, okay, in Bengali, brother. So brother, someone says that Rajkot image is the most beautiful. Someone says Varanasi. And some says Belur Math image is the best. But don't you think the image of Sri Ramakrishna that we have seen in our heart, the living image, is not that the most beautiful? Then the other Swami said, yes, exactly. So that is the most beautiful image of God when it is a real living presence in our own heart. So that is, Narada is saying that Avir Bhavati, God really manifests. And not only manifests, it is not a manifestation like God manifested, I could not recognize. So Narada confirms through another word, Anubhavayati. For example, I go to your house, okay, and look around, I don't see you, I come back. So I can say I went to your house, but you have no idea I visited it. So Anubhavayati means God not only manifest, but make the devotee feel God's presence. Anubhavayati. Anubhava means experiencing. And Anubhavayati means make you experience that I am present. Anubhavayati. So Anubhavayati means gives them direct experience. We know that generally there are three sources of knowledge. This is called pramana, sources of knowledge. One is we are seeing through our senses, pratyaksha, that is direct knowledge, pratyaksha. Second is anumana, inference. I am not seeing it directly, but I am inferring it. Okay. So I see a fire, smoke. That means there is fire. I am not seeing the fire directly, but seeing the smoke, I can infer there is fire. This is called anumana, inference. Third is shabda. Shabda means we read somewhere in Shastras, or a very reliable person tells me something. That is also a source of knowledge. This God realization is aparaksha anubhuti. Okay. It's not pratyaksha in the sense, although we shall see that is also possible. But usually it is not through our five sense organs we are seeing, not also we are inferring it. Okay. That is why it is given a separate name, aparaksha. Pratyaksha means direct, aparaksha means indirect. Pratyaksha means direct and paroksha means indirect. Aparoksha means direct but transcendental experience. A transcendental experience which is beyond this world. So that is the meaning of the word anubhavayati, direct transcendental experience. And how this direct experience takes place? The one that we know the most as vision. Vision as consciousness. A pure consciousness condensed. Swami Vivekananda, in his hymn to Sri Ramakrishna, says, Chit Ghana Kai. That is, Sri Ramakrishna's form is condensed consciousness. That is how a devotee may see a God, condensed consciousness. Sri Ramakrishna himself says about his experience of Kali. What he said? He said, the Divine Mother revealed to me in the Kali temple that it was she who had become everything. She showed me that everything was full of consciousness. The image was consciousness, the altar was consciousness, the water vessels were consciousness, the door sill was consciousness, the marble floor was consciousness. All was consciousness. I found everything inside the room soaked, as it were, in bliss, the bliss of Satchidananda. I clearly perceived that the Divine Mother herself had become everything, even the cat. So that is experiencing God as consciousness. And usually, the nature of such experience is ineffable. Ineffable, and because the devotees become one with God. One with God, there is no 1 second to report what happened. No, we don't see much example of how that God experience looks like, because the subject-object duality disappear. Sri Ramakrishna gives another example that a doll made of salt went to ocean to measure how deep the ocean was. But it itself melted in the ocean. Now, who will report how deep the ocean was? So that is a very apt description of the divine experiencing God. One is sure they experienced God, but the experience itself is beyond words, ineffable. That is what we see in most of the reports or most of the description of God realization. But again, secondly, which is very rare, that is, God can even be seen, touched, talked to with our very senses, very 5 senses. And that we find in gospel. I would say that that is one great contribution of Sri Ramakrishna. Otherwise, we would have always thought that God can be only realized as transcendental reality, as consciousness, not as in a, through our five senses. But Sri Ramakrishna clarifies it. One day he says, August 9, 1885, only 3-4 devotees were there. Swami Brahmananda, then of course the writer of the gospel, Mahendranath Gupta, and he said, God talked to me. It was not merely God's vision. Yes, God talked to me. Under the banyan tree, I saw God coming from the Ganges. Then we laughed so much. By way of playing with me, God cracked my fingers. Then God talked. Yes, God talked to me. Okay, so this is a very, I would say, very stunning revelation. Sri Ramakrishna is saying. In fact, in gospel, many places we see that Sri Ramakrishna is literally talking to Mother Kali, talking to Mother Kali. So that way also, Anubhavayati, when Narada says that God manifests and gives direct experience, that direct experience usually takes place as a transcendental experience, as consciousness, as all-pervading consciousness. But it can happen, not like we may think that, what we hear in the Puranas, that God appears as Vishnu, and those things cannot be believed, literally taken. But yes, we see that can also happen. That can also happen. So this is a great encouragement for us. We may take it or we may leave it. Okay, we may take it or may leave it, but that's a great assurance for us. Sri Ramakrishna gives to us what Narada is saying us, that God can be realized. God indeed can be realized and can be realized directly. If we are lucky enough, we probably get a glimpse of it, a glimpse of that, and probably we have already had some experience. Otherwise, why would I have pursued such thing, such an object which we have not seen, which we have not experienced anything about? Why we are still doing it? There must be some meaning in it. So that is a great encouragement for us, that God can be seen, felt, and touched. So Narada Bhakti Sutra gives us, almost towards the end, this first time Narada is saying that God really appears and gives the devotees direct experience. The summary of this aphorism is, with intense and sincere yearning, God indeed gives direct vision, direct experience to the devotees. Next aphorism will be again praise for the path of bhakti. Then finally, Narada will wrap up that how a devotee, what kind of relationship, whatever kind of relationship the devotee wants to have, they must have at least one relationship with God. And that is how devotee's life should proceed. That we shall see the next day. Any question, thought, idea? Yes.
The pure intuition, how that is different than what we can say is God talking. Because
Yes.
sometimes you are thinking to do one thing, and all of a sudden, out of blue, a thought comes, and it turns out if we follow that thought, that it was a right decision, but we
Right.
ignore it. And so how does one differentiates with the pure intuition and what we talked just now?
Yes. So there are, we don't have to differentiate, first of all. Okay. There are different degrees also of realization. Okay. And secondly, one great sign or great taste of a real realization or a fake realization is one won't have any doubt about the realization. Okay. And secondly, it will be transformative experience, a very transformative experience in our life. So if someone claims that I have seen God, I have realized God, but the person has not changed for better, a, what they call a sea change has not happened in that person has not become peaceful, loving, compassionate, and all those qualities still don't manifest in that. So we can say that the realization was not real.
Means Sri Ramakrishna talks about Kali Mata. Was that the Saguna darshan?
Yes,
Right?
Saguna, Nirguna both. Because if you just heard the first experience he had both the idea
Okay.
that it was Mother Kali, but who has become everything. Okay, so the sense that it was Mother Kali was there, but again, Mother Kali was consciousness in everything. Okay, so Saguna Nirguna both fused here. But many times, if you read in Gospel, his experiences, sometimes it is Nirguna, like ocean and ocean of consciousness. But sometimes he says totally with forms. Okay. And that's why he could, come to this conclusion that God can be with form, God can be without form. There could be many manifestation of God. So to say God is formless alone is to limit God.
Oh.
And he says that who are you to limit God? Who are you to say God is only formless, cannot be with form? So this was not his philosophical or intellectual decision he came to. Through his experience, he found that God can be with form, without form. Okay. So the reality is infinite, its manifestations can also be infinite. That is the thing.
I have one more question, but let somebody else ask.
No, go ahead.
As you know, Swamiji, I have been studying scriptures for many years and grateful for the opportunity with Ramakrishna Mission and Chinmaya Mission. Yet, when we say consciousness, sometimes or many times it feels not clear or undefined, because let's say I'm saying I'm conscious of talking with you. Okay, so that means that my mind, my intellect, both gross body, subtle body are engaged. Okay, so that's why I'm becoming conscious of talking with you, or conscious of anything I look at, right? Whichever Jnanendriya needs to function. And the mind has to be there also, and the memory also there. But this concept of God as pure consciousness still doesn't become very clear in my mind or intellect. So
yes.
you can elaborate on that?
Yes, exactly. Because consciousness is beyond mind. Okay. Although consciousness is everywhere, even working through the mind, but mind cannot grasp consciousness. Okay, mind cannot grasp consciousness because consciousness is infinite and it is even beyond the mind. So when we are saying that I am conscious, I am talking to you, it is the reflected consciousness.
It
The
is one
reflected consciousness. Reflected consciousness in mind through which I am working, talking, and I am aware of something. Okay. So here there is consciousness and object of consciousness. Okay, but consciousness, the real one, that any talk about it is not in fact possible. Okay. So whatever we speak about in the scripture, whether Sat or Chit or Ananda, these are only to give some idea, pointers. Okay, only pointers, because that cannot be really, it is such a thing which is beyond words, which is unlike any other thing that we can speak about. Okay, so doubt about consciousness will always remain until we experience it.
No, sometimes in meditation, you become unconscious about the body, and no thoughts come, and then there is complete silence, right now. But we are aware. I'm aware of that silence.
Yeah. So, as long as we are aware,
awareness is still remaining. Then
yes,
that's what.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
So that awareness has to go away also, right?
No, awareness don't have to go. Awareness of something has to go, where subject alone will remain without any object.
So the feeling of we cannot see feeling because we're not aware of the mind.
Only subject will remain. There will be no object to be aware of. That is pure consciousness.
But then is the peace an object?
No, even the understanding of peace won't remain. If you are meditating and you are feeling that I am so peaceful, so that is not even yet the highest state of meditation. Okay. So at the highest state of meditation, what will happen? All awareness that I am meditating will fall off. Okay. So only awareness of remain, but awareness of not of anything. Awareness itself will remain. Only awareness will remain. Awareness not of anything.
Oh.
Okay. So that is called the samadhi. Okay. That is samadhi. When awareness itself will remain. And that's why it is difficult to say what we experience at that time. Difficult to say what we experience, because the subject object, this thing fused. Subject and object duality fused. Okay. But after coming back from that state, we can understand it was a wonderful state. Okay, peace and joy, I all enjoyed. That's it.
Almost it feels like crying. Why would it come out of it?
Exactly.
Swamiji, we're going to be almost out of time, but let me ask.
No. Yes, please go ahead.
So, the story about the salt doll going down to measure the depth. What's the significance of being a salt doll? Is it the idea that we have, the ocean is made of water and salt,
right?
And it's the same Atman. That's inside us. Is otherwise you could have said a sugar doll or some other.
Yes, right. Exactly. So then we have to really bring out the concept of Advaita Vedanta. Okay, that we all are manifestation of that pure consciousness. Okay, that's why when this consciousness goes, the God's consciousness, they become one. And it, as like a salt doll that melts down, we also melts. Okay, we also melt down. Yes.
The other question, Sri Ramakrishna Thakur being an avatar, right? So, but at the same time, as a born, in this material world as a mortal, he has to play by the rules of, the mortal existence. So, in what sense is one supposed to interpret that, he has seen God? in some sense, he's an avatar of God. So one could think that, well, I mean, it should be easier for him.
Exactly.
If you know
So
what I mean.
I know what I mean. And that is the entire purpose of, that is the mystery of these divine incarnations. Because if they are divine, there is no point of realization or doing even doing sadhana, even spiritual practices, meaningless because they are part of that divine consciousness. So that is the mystery of, so to show us that it is possible, to show us that in human birth it is possible to have direct experience of God, or even to lead a religious life, a moral life. So they behave like us. That they also follow the same rules of the game that we are into. But they are advanced, so they succeed well and sets example for us that yes, it is possible. Yes, it is possible. Okay. Otherwise, there was no point why divine incarnation at all should come.
Thank you.
Yeah. You often quote Thakur Gospel. If the page number you will get page number or year. Yeah. Okay. You're getting such a feeling at all in the asana and you must be meditation. Yes. Yeah. Good. All right. So today we are skipping the meditation. Okay. Today for the first time, because I am some other thing to do, but from next week we shall do again. Okay. Reflected consciousness. Yeah. Thank you. So see you next week. Okay. Next, probably within, let's see, probably next week we can finish this text, and then we shall summarize the entire text in the last class as we do, and then move on to our next text. Okay. See you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Pranams.
Yes.
Pranam.
Pranam Maharaj.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Swamiji, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.